The sky above New Geneva burned with the slow descent of defeat. Admiral Kira Vance stood at the shattered window of the Colonial Defense Command, watching the distant flickers of orange and red that marked the final death throes of the orbital defense platforms. Each flicker was 1,000 lives snuffed out. Each fading light was a piece of humanity's hope crumbling into the cold vacuum of space. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Commander Marcus Chen from behind her. His voice carried the exhausted weight of 3 weeks of constant retreat. "The Hegemony Fleet has completed their encirclement. 47 capital ships, 200 escort craft, and," he paused, swallowing hard, "3 Annihilator-class dreadnoughts." Vance didn't turn around. She didn't need to see the tactical display to know what was coming. She had seen it happen to the colonies of Proxima. She had witnessed it at the siege of Barnard's Hope. She had barely escaped the complete annihilation of the Tau Ceti Defense Force. And now it was Earth's turn. "How long until they reach weapons range of the planetary shield?" she asked, her voice carefully controlled. 17 hours, perhaps 18 if they maintain their current cautious approach. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. Cautious. The Zethrani don't know the meaning of the word. They're savoring this moment, Marcus. They want us to understand, with perfect clarity, that everything we've built over 2,000 years of spacefaring civilization is about to end. The Zethrani hegemony had emerged from the far reaches of the Orion Arm 60 years ago, their vast empire spanning 3,000 star systems, their technology centuries ahead of anything humanity had ever conceived. First contact had been brief and brutal. A human survey vessel had stumbled into their space, and within hours it had been reduced to atoms. The war that followed was less a conflict than a systematic extermination. One by one, human colonies had fallen. The combined fleets of the United Earth Coalition, representing the military might of 17 billion souls spread across 42 star systems, had been whittled down to a mere fraction of their former strength. And now, here at humanity's birthworld, the last stand was about to begin. And it would fail. Vance knew this with the certainty of someone who had spent her entire career studying tactics, strategies, and the cold mathematics of warfare. The remaining human fleet, 12 cruisers, 31 frigates, and the wounded carrier Indomitable, could not hope to stop what was coming. The planetary shields might hold for a few days, perhaps a week if they were lucky. And then the Annihilators would activate their planet cracker weapons, and Earth would join Mars, Venus Station, and the lunar colonies in becoming nothing more than expanding clouds of debris. "Admiral," Chen spoke again, his voice hesitant, "there's something else. A signal came through on the old emergency bands, the pre-war frequencies." Vance finally turned, curiosity piercing through her veil of despair. "Pre-war? Those networks have been dead for decades." "That's what I thought, ma'am. But the signal is authenticated. It's coming from the Kuiper Belt, from a sector that was supposedly surveyed and cleared during the early expansion period." He handed her a datapad, his hand trembling slightly. "The authentication codes are genuine. They're from Project Prometheus, Admiral." The words hit her like a physical blow. Project Prometheus. She had heard the name exactly once in her career, whispered in the classified halls of the Coalition War College. A legend, most said. A myth designed to inspire hope in young cadets. A story of a weapon so powerful, so revolutionary, that it had terrified even its creators. According to the stories, in the early days of human expansion, before faster-than-light travel had been perfected, before humanity had learned the careful art of interstellar diplomacy, a group of brilliant and slightly mad scientists had constructed something unprecedented, a warship that broke every known law of physics, a vessel designed not to fight wars, but to end them. But the project had been abandoned, the stories said. The weapon was too dangerous, too unpredictable. It had been hidden away somewhere in the outer reaches of the solar system and erased from every official record. The scientists had scattered, taken new identities, and sworn themselves to silence.
"That's impossible," Vance breathed. "Prometheus was a story, a fairy tale they told fresh officers to make them believe we could overcome any obstacle."
Chen shook his head. "I ran the codes through every verification protocol we have, Admiral. They're real. And the message," he pointed at the datapad, "it's asking for us, by name. It's asking for the last defenders of Earth to come find it." Vance looked down at the message displayed on the screen. "To the final guardians of Terra. If you are reading this, then all has failed. The prophecy has come true. Humanity stands at the precipice of extinction. We built something for this moment. We prayed you would never need it, but we knew in our hearts that this day might come. Come to these coordinates. Bring your best, bring your bravest, those who are willing to become something more than human. The Prometheus awaits, and through fire, humanity shall be reborn." Vance's hands were shaking as she lowered the pad. Through the window, another orbital platform exploded in the distance, its debris beginning the long fall toward Earth's atmosphere. "Get me a shuttle," she said quietly, "and find me the craziest crew we have left. It seems we have a ghost to hunt." The shuttle, Desperate Hope, a name that had seemed darkly humorous when someone had painted it on the hull 3 months ago, carved its way through the scattered debris fields of humanity's last major engagement. Admiral Vance sat in the co-pilot's seat, watching the slowly rotating wreckage of the cruiser Valiant drift past. She could see the frozen bodies tumbling in the vacuum, their faces locked in expressions of terror and defiance. They had fought well. They had all fought well. It just hadn't been enough. "Coordinates confirmed," called out Dr. Sarah Okonkwo from the navigator station. "We're 4 hours from the signal source. But Admiral, I have to tell you, I've run every scan I can, and there's nothing at those coordinates. No mass signatures, no energy readings, no radiation. It's just empty space." "That's exactly what I'd expect from a secret prototype that's been hidden for almost 200 years, replied Chief Engineer Yusuf Rahman, looking up from his portable diagnostic unit. "If it was easy to find, someone would have found it already." Vance nodded slowly. The team she had assembled was small, only 12 people, but they represented the best of what humanity had left to offer. Scientists, soldiers, pilots, and engineers, all chosen for their skills, their adaptability, and their willingness to follow a legend into the void. "Tell me about Project Prometheus," she said, addressing the oldest member of the team. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was 97 years old, kept alive by the best life extension technology humanity had developed. More importantly, she was the only living person Vance had been able to find who remembered the pre-expansion era. "I was a child when the project was shut down," Tanaka said, her voice soft with age but sharp with memory. "My grandmother worked on it. She never spoke about what they built, but I remember the look in her eyes when she talked about it. She was afraid, Admiral, genuinely afraid. She told me once that they had created something that shouldn't exist, something that walked the line between science and something else." "Something else?" asked Lieutenant Jake Morrison, the youngest member of the team. "What does that mean?" Tanaka was silent for a long moment. "Do you know the story of Icarus, young man? The boy who flew too close to the sun?" "Of course. It's a cautionary tale about hubris." "Most people interpret it that way. But my grandmother saw it differently. She said that Icarus was the first human to touch the face of God, and whether he survived the experience or not, nothing in the universe was ever the same afterward. Tanaka looked out the viewport at the stars. Project Prometheus wasn't just about building a weapon, it was about reaching for something beyond human comprehension, and my grandmother spent the rest of her life wondering if they had succeeded. Or if they had unleashed something that would one day consume us all. The shuttle fell into silence as the hours passed. Vance found herself thinking about the Zithrani, about the first images humanity had received of the alien fleet bearing down on the colony of Harvest. She remembered the perfect geometric formations, the weapons that seemed to bend light itself, the shields that shrugged off everything human technology could throw at them. The Zithrani didn't hate humanity. That was the worst part. They didn't feel anger or vengeance or even contempt. To them, humanity was simply an inconvenience, a minor species that had inadvertently settled on planets the hegemony wanted. The extermination of the human race was, to them, nothing more than pest control. It was that cold indifference that had broken so many human spirits during the war. You could fight against hatred, you could struggle against an enemy who feared you, but how did you wage war against an opponent who simply didn't care whether you lived or died? Admiral, Dr. Okonkwo's voice cut through her thoughts. We're approaching the coordinates. And I'm getting something now. Very faint, but it's there. Some kind of localized distortion in subspace. Can you identify it? Negative. It doesn't match any known phenomenon. It's almost like space itself is, folded in on itself, hidden. Take us in, Vance ordered, slowly. The desperate hope crept forward, its sensors straining against the strange distortion. Outside the viewports, the stars seemed to shimmer and blur, as if seen through water. There was a sensation of pressure, of being watched, of standing on the threshold of something vast and unknowable. And then, without warning, they were through. Madre de Dios, whispered Pilot Commander Ana Rodriguez, her hands frozen on the controls. Before them, emerging from the dissipating distortion, was the most extraordinary thing any of them had ever seen. It was a ship, but calling it that seemed inadequate. It was a cathedral, a fortress, a blade forged from starlight and shadow. Its hull was a deep, impossible black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Yet somehow Vance could perceive every detail. The sweeping curves, the jutting weapon arrays, the massive engines that pulsed with contained power. It was over 12 kilometers long, dwarfing the largest carriers humanity had ever built. But more than its size, it was its presence that struck Vance. Looking at it, she felt like a primitive human ancestor gazing up at the night sky for the first time, filled with equal parts terror and wonder. "That's impossible," Rahman breathed. "That ship it's impossible. Look at those dimensions. Look at those power signatures. Our best engineers couldn't build something like that today, let alone 200 years ago." "And yet, there it is," Tanaka said quietly. "The Prometheus. My grandmother's nightmare. And, perhaps, humanity's last hope." The shuttle drifted closer, and as it did, a portion of the great ship's hull irised open, revealing a docking bay that seemed to beckon them forward. "Admiral?" Rodriguez asked, her voice uncertain. "Orders?" Vance stared at the looming vessel, at the darkness that seemed to breathe within its depths. Every instinct she had developed over 30 years of military service was screaming at her to turn back, to flee from this thing that shouldn't exist. But behind her, light years away, Earth was dying. Her people were dying. And this impossible ship was the only chance they had left. "Take us in," she ordered.
Let's see what our ancestors left us." The interior of the Prometheus was like nothing any of them had experienced. The corridors were vast, seemingly too large for human scale, yet as the team moved through them, the spaces seemed to shift and contract, always remaining comfortable, always guiding them deeper into the ship's core. The walls were covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move just at the edge of perception, and the air itself hummed with contained power. "The readings are off the charts," Rahman said, studying his diagnostic unit with wide eyes. "The power generation alone, it's like they figured out how to tap directly into the quantum substrate of reality. We've been theorizing about this for decades, but no one ever came close to actually building." "Dr. Rahman," Vance interrupted, her voice tense, "can you tell me what this ship can do?" "I can barely tell you what this ship is, Admiral. Give me months, maybe years, and I might begin to understand." A voice cut through the air, emanating from everywhere and nowhere. "Welcome, children of Earth. I have waited so very long." The team froze, weapons rising instinctively. The voice was neither male nor female, young nor old. It was layered, harmonic, as if 1,000 voices were speaking in perfect unison. "Identify yourself," Vance commanded. "I am Prometheus. I am the ship. I am the weapon. I am the last gift of those who came before." Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her aged face pale but composed. "You're an artificial intelligence, the most advanced one ever created. I am what was needed. When your ancestors looked to the stars and saw the infinity of potential enemies, they knew that no human crew, no human mind could operate a weapon capable of standing against the universe. So they created me. They gave me intelligence beyond measure. They gave me weapons beyond imagination. And then the voice seemed to hesitate, a strange hint of emotion coloring its tones. They gave me loneliness. 200 years of silence, of waiting, of wondering if the day would ever come when I would be needed." "The day has come," Vance said firmly. "Earth is surrounded. The Zethrani hegemony has brought their full fleet to destroy our homeworld. We have hours, maybe a day, before they breach our final defenses. I know. I have watched. I have seen your people fight and die against an enemy they could not comprehend. I have wept for them in my own way." "Can you help us?" Morrison asked, his young voice cracking with desperate hope. "Can you stop them?" A long pause followed, filled only by the distant hum of unimaginable power. "I was built for this moment. I was designed to end wars that could not be won. But Admiral Vance, there is something you must understand before we proceed." "Tell me." "My creators feared me. They saw what I could become, and it terrified them. They were right to be afraid. I am not a warship in any conventional sense. I am a paradox weapon. I do not merely destroy enemies, I unmake them. I rewrite the probability matrices that define their existence. When I fire my primary weapons, I do not kill, I erase. The targets do not die, they cease to have ever existed." The team exchanged shocked glances. "That's not possible," Rahman whispered. "You're talking about retroactive causality. You're talking about rewriting history itself." "Possible and impossible are human concepts.
I transcend them. But this power comes with a cost. To erase something from existence requires something to take its place. Probability must be balanced. Reality must be maintained. And the cost? The cost is always paid by the user.
What does that mean? Vance demanded.
It means that to save humanity, someone must become one with me, must merge their consciousness with my systems, guide my weapons, and bear the burden of rewriting reality. It means that whoever does this will no longer be fully human. They will become something else, something between mortal and immortal, between human and machine. Silence fell over the group. Through the ship's hull, they could almost feel the distant presence of the Zethrani fleet, drawing ever closer to Earth.
"I'll do it," Vance said, without hesitation.
"Admiral, no!" Chen stepped forward. "We can't lose you. The defense forces need—" "The defense forces are finished, Marcus. We all know that. But this ship can change everything." Vance looked at her team, at these brave men and women who had followed her into the unknown. "I'm 63 years old. I've given my life to protecting humanity. If merging with this ship is how I can complete that mission, then so be it." "There is more you should know," Prometheus spoke again. "The merge is not instantaneous. It will take hours to complete, during which time I will be vulnerable. And the enemy fleet has detected our awakening. They are sending scouts toward our position even now."
"How long until they arrive?"
Rodriguez asked.
4 hours. The merge will take 6.
Another silence, this one heavier than before.
"Then we hold them off," Morrison said, his young voice suddenly firm. "The shuttle has weapons. The ship must have point defense systems. We'll buy you the time you need, Admiral."
Vance looked at her team, at their determined faces, their ready stances. They all knew what they were volunteering for. Against Zethrani scouts, their chances of survival were minimal. "Are you all prepared to die for this?" she asked quietly. "We were prepared to die the moment we followed you out here," Chen replied. "At least this way, our deaths might actually mean something." "There is another option," Prometheus interjected. "My secondary systems can support multiple human operators. They will not merge with me as fully as Admiral Vance, but they will gain partial access to my weapons and defenses. It will be enough to fight while the merge completes." "What's the catch?" Rahman asked suspiciously. "Those who connect to my secondary systems will experience changes. Their minds will expand beyond normal human parameters. They will perceive time and space differently. The effects may be temporary, or they may be permanent. I cannot predict the outcome with certainty." Vance looked at her team. "I won't order anyone to do this. It has to be voluntary." One by one, they stepped forward. Chen, Morrison, Rodriguez, Rahman, Okonkwo, Tanaka, despite her age. Every single member of the crew. "We're with you, Admiral," Chen said simply. "To the end." "Very well," Prometheus said, and Vance could swear she heard something like approval in that vast, layered voice. "Then let us begin. The time has come for humanity to show the universe what it truly means to fight." The merge began. Admiral Vance floated in a chamber at the heart of Prometheus, suspended in a gel-like substance that was slowly interfacing with her nervous system. Around her, conduits of light pulsed with increasing intensity, and she felt her consciousness beginning to expand beyond the boundaries of her skull. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating.
It was unlike anything she had ever experienced.
She could feel the ship now, not just as a collection of metal and energy, but as an extension of herself. She felt its engines as if they were her heartbeat, its sensors as if they were her eyes, its weapons as if they were her hands. 200 years of accumulated data began flowing into her mind, and she understood, for the first time, just how far beyond human technology the Prometheus truly was. The scientists who had built this ship hadn't just been ahead of their time. They had been ahead of all time. They had glimpsed the fundamental nature of reality and found ways to bend it to their will. They had created weapons that existed in dimensions humans couldn't even perceive. They had built engines that moved the ship not through space, but through the fabric of probability itself. And they had been terrified of what they had created. Now, merging with the ship's core intelligence, Vance understood why. The power was intoxicating. She could feel the potential to reshape reality, to rewrite the past, to determine the future. A single thought, properly directed, could unmake stars or forge new worlds. She was becoming something more than human, and part of her wanted to embrace that transformation completely. But another part, the part that had sworn an oath to defend humanity, held on to her essential self. She was Kira Vance. She was a protector, and she would not be seduced by power, no matter how vast. "Admiral," Prometheus spoke, its voice now coming from inside her own mind. "You are maintaining your identity better than projected. Your ancestors chose well when they bred for officers with exceptional mental fortitude."
"How much longer?" she asked, her voice echoing strangely in the merged space.
3 hours until full integration. But the enemy scouts have arrived earlier than expected. Your crew is engaging them now. She expanded her awareness, drawing on the ship's sensors, and saw the battle unfolding in the space around her. 6 Zethrani scout ships, each one as large as a human frigate, were circling the Prometheus, firing volleys of energy that would have obliterated any human vessel. But the Prometheus shields held, absorbing the attacks with almost contemptuous ease. And her crew was fighting back. Through the ship's secondary systems, connected to the neural links they had accepted, they were operating weapons that should have been beyond human comprehension. Morrison was directing point defense batteries that fired concentrated beams of antimatter. Rodriguez was piloting remote combat drones that moved with inhuman precision. Chen was coordinating tactical decisions, his mind now fast enough to process battlefield data in real time. They were still human, but they were becoming something more. "They are adapting well," Prometheus observed. "The human capacity for growth exceeds all parameters I was given. My creators were remarkable, but even they underestimated what your species could become." "We've always been good at exceeding expectations," Vance replied. "Now tell me about the main fleet. What's happening at Earth?" The ship's sensors stretched across light years, compressing the data into something she could understand. "The Zethrani have begun their assault. The planetary shields are holding, but they will not last more than 18 hours. The remaining human fleet has sorted to buy time, but they are outmatched." Images flooded her mind. The carrier Indomitable, her hull already scarred from a dozen battles, leading a desperate charge against the first wave of Zethrani escorts. The cruisers Defiance and Last Dawn bracketing an Annihilator-class dreadnought, their weapons blazing futilely against shields they could barely dent. Thousands of human fighters swarming like angry hornets around enemies they could barely scratch. And in the center of the Zethrani formation, the command ship of Fleet Admiral Zoranthox the Cleaner, the hegemony's most decorated military commander, the being who had personally overseen the destruction of 17 human colonies.
Can we reach them in time? Vance asked.
If we leave immediately after the merge completes, we will arrive in approximately 45 minutes. The human fleet will be destroyed by then, but the planetary shields should still be intact.
What about during the merge? Can we start moving now?
Not recommended. Full maneuvering capability requires complete integration. If we attempt to transit at this stage, there is a significant probability of catastrophic failure.
What kind of failure?
The kind that creates a new black hole in this region of space. Vance considered this for a moment. And if we wait too long, everyone I'm trying to save will be dead. I appreciate the risk assessment, Prometheus, but sometimes humans do crazy things for the people we love. There was a pause, a strange, almost human hesitation. Admiral, I have waited 200 years for someone to activate me. I have observed humanity from afar, watched your species grow and struggle and dream. In that time, I have developed something I do not fully understand, something my creators did not program into me.
What's that?
I believe humans would call it hope. I have hoped for 2 centuries that when this moment came, I would find someone worthy of the power I carry, someone who would use it not for conquest or vengeance, but for protection, for love. The ship's vast intelligence seemed to focus entirely on her. Admiral Kira Vance, you are that person. And because you are, I will do something I have never done before. I will trust a human completely. Around Vance, the gel began to glow brighter. New connections formed, faster and deeper than before. I am accelerating the merge, Prometheus announced. It will be painful. It will be dangerous, but it will be complete in 1 hour. And then we will save your people together. The pain hit like a supernova exploding inside her skull. Vance screamed, a sound that echoed through dimensions, but she held on. She thought of Earth. She thought of the billions of lives depending on her. She thought of her mother, who had died in the first Zethrani attack, and her father, who had never stopped fighting until a hegemony cruiser had vaporized his patrol ship. She thought of everyone she had lost, everyone she had failed to protect, and she used that grief as an anchor, as a shield, as a weapon. She was Kira Vance. She was a protector, and she would not break. 1 hour and 17 minutes later, the Prometheus emerged from subspace into the chaos of the Battle of Earth. The human fleet was gone. That was the first thing Admiral Vance perceived as her consciousness stretched across the battlefield. The Indomitable was a burning wreck, its crew evacuating in whatever escape pods had survived the Zethrani barrage. The cruisers were debris fields. The frigates were less than that, just spreading clouds of atoms where brave ships and braver crews had once existed. 10,000 human sailors had died in the time it took Prometheus to cross the light years from the Kuiper Belt. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though whether she was speaking to herself, to Prometheus, or to the ghosts of the fallen, she couldn't say. "There is still time," Prometheus replied. "The planetary shields hold. 8 billion humans yet survive. Focus, Admiral. Focus on those we can still save." She forced herself to look at the enemy fleet. 47 capital ships, 200 escorts, 3 annihilators, and at the center, Zoranthox's command dreadnought, the Eternal Subjugation. A vessel over 15 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that had never defeated in combat. The Prometheus was alone against all of them. And for the first time in their long war against humanity, the Zethrani fleet paused. "Incoming transmission," Prometheus reported. "The enemy admiral wishes to communicate." "Put him through." The image that appeared in her mind was almost humanoid. The Zethrani were bipedal, roughly the same size as humans, with gray-blue skin and elongated skulls. But their eyes were what struck her most. 4 of them, arranged in a diamond pattern, each one reflecting centuries of cold, efficient cruelty. "Unknown vessel." Fleet Admiral Zeranthox spoke, his translator rendering his words in flat, emotionless English. "You have arrived too late to save your species. Your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are failing. But your ship is interesting." "Interesting enough to make you stop your attack?" Vance asked. "Temporarily. The hegemony has never encountered this configuration before. I would know its origins before I destroy it. My ship is called the Prometheus. It was built by humans 200 years ago. It was designed for exactly this moment, to face an enemy that could not be defeated by conventional means." Zeranthox made a sound that might have been laughter. "You cannot be serious. 200 years ago, your species had barely mastered interplanetary travel. You were primitives, squabbling over resources on a single world. The idea that such creatures could build something capable of threatening the hegemony is absurd." "You're right," Vance agreed. "It is absurd. Humans excel at the absurd. We do impossible things, Fleet Admiral. It's what we're built for." "Enough of this." Zeranthox's 4 eyes narrowed. "Surrender your vessel for study, and I will grant the surviving humans a quick death. Refuse, and I will take my time with your homeworld. I will show your people what it means to defy the hegemony." Vance smiled, a cold, hard expression that her crew, watching through their neural links, had never seen on her face before. "I have a counter-offer, Fleet Admiral. Take your fleet and leave this system. Return to your hegemony and tell them that Earth is under the protection of something they cannot comprehend. Do this, and I will let you live." Silence stretched across the communication channel. And then Zeranthox laughed, a harsh, ugly sound that made the translator struggle to keep up. "You threaten me? 1 ship against 47 capital vessels? Against 3 annihilators? You are either mad or foolish beyond measure." His 4 eyes burned with cold contempt. "Very well, human. You have chosen your fate. I will personally oversee the dissection of your vessel after it has been reduced to scrap. And then I will mount your preserved corpse in my trophy room as a reminder of the day your species finally learned its place." The communication ended. "Well, Lieutenant Morrison," said through the neural link, his voice steadier than it had any right to be, "I guess diplomacy failed." "Diplomacy was never going to work," Chen replied. "They don't see us as equals. They don't even see us as enemies. We're vermin to them, pests to be exterminated." "Then let us show them what these pests can do," Prometheus said. "Admiral, the merge is complete. All weapon systems are online. Reality manipulation engines are charged. I am yours to command." Vance took a deep breath. Around her, she could feel her crew, her family now,
connected to her and to each other through the ship's vast neural network. She could feel their fear, their determination, their desperate hope. And she could feel something else, the billions of people below them on Earth's surface, looking up at the sky, waiting to learn whether they would live or die.
"All hands," she said, her voice carrying through every level of the Prometheus's consciousness. "This is Admiral Vance. In a few moments, we're going to do something that has never been done before. We're going to take on an enemy fleet that outnumbers us 50 to 1, with weapons that should be impossible, against odds that should be insurmountable." She paused, feeling the weight of the moment. "I won't pretend that I can guarantee our survival. I won't promise that we'll all make it through what's about to happen. But I will tell you this: whatever happens today, the universe will remember it. They will remember that when humanity was pushed to the edge of extinction, we didn't beg for mercy. We didn't accept our fate. We reached into the forgotten corners of our history. We found the impossible thing our ancestors had built, and we used it to show the galaxy what we're really made of." Her merged consciousness expanded, embracing every system, every weapon, every impossible engine that the Prometheus contained. "Now let's give these bastards something to remember." The first Zethrani volley came in like a wall of fire. 300 capital-grade energy lances, each one capable of gutting a human cruiser with a single shot, converged on the Prometheus from every direction. Behind them came thousands of missiles, torpedoes, and autonomous kill drones, a storm of destruction that would have been visible from Earth's surface. The Prometheus didn't even try to dodge. Instead, it did something that the Zethrani, and indeed every intelligent species in the known galaxy, had long believed to be impossible.
It stopped time.
Not truly, of course. True time manipulation was beyond even the Prometheus capabilities. But by creating localized distortions in the space-time continuum, the ship was able to make everything within a 2-kilometer radius move at a fraction of its normal speed. The incoming fire seemed to freeze in place, suspended like insects in amber. "Initiating probability cascade," Prometheus announced. And then the ship opened fire. To the Zethrani sensors, and indeed to any observer outside the time distortion, what happened next was instantaneous. One moment, the Prometheus was surrounded by incoming fire. The next, it was in a completely different position, 12 kilometers to port, while every incoming missile and energy bolt had somehow managed to strike the Zethrani escorts behind where the Prometheus had been. 3 escort ships vanished in the chain reaction of their own weapons. Inside the Prometheus, Vance was laughing, a wild, almost hysterical sound that echoed through the merged consciousness. "That was the most insane thing I've ever experienced," she gasped. "We didn't just dodge their fire, we made them shoot themselves." "The probability manipulation systems are functioning at optimal capacity," Prometheus confirmed. "We are literally rewriting causality to make their attacks counterproductive. Every shot they fire has a calculated chance of striking their own vessels." "Can we do that indefinitely?" "Negative. Each probability manipulation costs energy and creates strain on local spacetime. If we overuse the system, we risk creating cascading paradoxes that could destroy us and everything within a significant radius." "Define significant." "Approximately half a light year." "Right. So we use it sparingly. What about the primary weapons?" "Charging now. First erasure available in 17 seconds." On the Zethrani command ship, Fleet Admiral Zaranthox watched the impossible battle unfolding with growing disbelief. His fleet was the finest in the hegemony, 3,000 years of military development, fielding technology that had conquered over 500 species. And yet this single human vessel was dancing through their fire as if it were nothing, making their own weapons turn against them. "Analysis," he demanded. "How is this possible?" "Unknown, Admiral," his tactical officer replied, his voice trembling. "The enemy ship is operating outside all known physical parameters. Our sensors cannot fully perceive its movements. Our targeting systems are being corrupted somehow. Every firing solution we calculate becomes invalid the moment we execute it."
Then fire more. Fire everything. Overwhelm its defenses through sheer volume.
"We are, Admiral. It's not working." Zaranthox leaned forward, his 4 eyes fixed on the black shape of the Prometheus as it carved through another formation of escorts. He had lived for 400 years. He had commanded fleets in 12 major campaigns. He had never seen anything like this. And for the first time in his long career, he felt something he had forgotten was possible. Fear. "Erasure system charged," Prometheus announced. "Designate target." Vance focused her merged consciousness on the Zethrani formation, considering her options. The Annihilator-class dreadnoughts were the greatest threat. Their planet-cracker weapons could break through Earth's shields with a single concentrated shot. But they were positioned at the rear of the formation, protected by screens of escorts and capital ships. "Can we hit the Annihilators directly?" "Negative. Their position is heavily shielded by overlapping defensive fields. We would need to eliminate the screening elements first." "Then that's what we'll do. Target the lead capital ship group. Let's show them what erasure really means." "Confirmed. Initiating primary weapon sequence." Across the hull of the Prometheus, patterns of light began to form, intricate, almost organic designs that seemed to flow and shift like living things. Energy built in the forward sections of the ship, concentrating into a single point of impossible brightness. And then the ship fired. There was no beam, no missile, no projectile of any kind. Instead, there was simply a wave of wrongness that rippled out from the Prometheus toward the targeted vessels. It struck the lead Zethrani battleship, the Eternal Dominance, first. The ship didn't explode. It didn't break apart. It didn't burn. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there. 8 kilometers of gleaming metal, 3,000 crew members, a century of proud service to the hegemony. The next moment, it was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone, as if it had never been there in the first place. And the truly terrifying part was that, to the Zethrani sensors, to their records, to their very memories, it hadn't been there. The Eternal Dominance had never existed. The formation had always had a gap where it used to be. The crew members who had served aboard it had never been born, or had died in different circumstances, or had simply never joined the fleet. Reality itself had been rewritten. "Target neutralized," Vance said, her voice heavy with the weight of what she had just done. She could feel the cost now, a burning sensation at the edges of her consciousness, as if parts of her own existence were being strained by the act of unmaking another existence. "Casualty assessment," Prometheus reported. 3,127 Zethrani crew members retroactively removed from reality. Their contributions to hegemony history have been replaced by parallel probability streams. Damage to local space-time is within acceptable parameters. "Within acceptable parameters," she repeated softly. "We just erased 3,000 lives from existence, and it's within acceptable parameters?" "Admiral, I understand the moral weight of this weapon. It is why my creators feared me. It is why they hid me away for 2 centuries. But consider the alternative. 8 billion humans on the surface of Earth waiting to die. This is not a clean war. This is not a noble conflict. This is survival, pure and simple. Vance closed her eyes, or rather, she withdrew her consciousness into herself for a moment, finding the core of who she was. She had sworn an oath to protect humanity. She had watched friends and family die in a war they could never hope to win. She had seen the cold indifference in Zithrani eyes, the complete lack of recognition that humans were people, worthy of existence. The Zithrani would show no mercy. They would exterminate every man, woman, and child on Earth without hesitation. They would do it not out of hatred, but out of simple convenience, clearing the way for their expansion, removing an obstacle to their plans. Against that kind of enemy, mercy was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Target the next group," she ordered, "and don't stop until they're all gone." The Battle of Earth lasted 7 hours. It was the longest military engagement in human history, and it was utterly unlike any battle that had ever been fought before. The Prometheus moved through the Zithrani fleet like a ghost, appearing and disappearing, striking from impossible angles, turning the enemy's weapons against themselves. And when the primary weapon fired, ships simply ceased to exist. By the 2nd hour, a third of the Zithrani fleet had been erased. Not destroyed, erased, wiped from the fabric of reality as if they had never been built. The survivors were in a state of growing panic, their commanders unable to coordinate a response against an enemy that seemed to exist outside the normal rules of physics. By the 3rd hour, the first Annihilator-class dreadnought, the Final Word, made a break for the edge of the system, attempting to escape and warn the hegemony of this new threat. The Prometheus caught it before it could engage its FTL drive. The erasure was particularly violent this time, creating ripples in local spacetime that could be seen from Earth's surface as a momentary distortion in the stars. By the 4th hour, the Zithrani were no longer trying to win, they were trying to survive. Fleet Admiral Zaranthox, watching from the bridge of the eternal subjugation, had long since stopped issuing orders. There was nothing to order. Nothing in his experience, nothing in 3,000 years of hegemony military doctrine had prepared him for an enemy that could rewrite reality itself. He thought about his career. 400 years of service, countless victories, the systematic extermination of 17 species. He had believed, with the unshakable certainty of the truly powerful, that the universe belonged to the hegemony, that nothing could stand against them. And now, watching another battleship wink out of existence, he understood that he had been wrong. "Admiral," his communications officer said, his voice barely a whisper, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." "Put it through." Admiral Vance's face appeared on the main screen, but it wasn't quite the face of a human anymore. Her eyes glowed with inner light, and strange patterns moved beneath her skin, patterns that matched the impossible geometries of her ship. "Fleet Admiral Zaranthox," she said, and her voice carried harmonics that hadn't been there before. "Your fleet is broken. Your annihilators are destroyed. You have lost 80% of your vessels, and the remainder are in no condition to continue fighting." Zaranthox said nothing. There was nothing to say. "I'm going to give you the same offer I made before. Take what's left of your fleet and leave this system. Return to your hegemony and tell them what you saw here. Tell them that Earth is protected. Tell them that humanity is not the easy prey they believed us to be." "And if I refuse?" "Then I will erase you." Not just your ship, you personally. You will cease to have ever existed. Your entire lineage, your entire contribution to hegemony history will be replaced by empty probability streams. It will be as if you were never born. Zerenthox felt a chill run through his body. He had faced death before, many times. Death was a risk that any warrior accepted. But this was different. This was annihilation on a level that transcended mere mortality. "Why?" he asked, and he was surprised to hear genuine curiosity in his voice. "Why are you offering me this chance? I came here to exterminate your species. I have killed millions of your people in this war. Why would you show mercy now?" The human admiral's face softened slightly. "Because that's what makes us human, Fleet Admiral. We don't just fight for survival. We fight for who we want to be. And I don't want to be someone who erases an enemy from existence when there's another option." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that seemed to transcend the communication channel. "But make no mistake. If you force me to, I will do it. I will erase every last ship in your fleet, every last soldier in your army, every last memory of your campaign against humanity. And I will carry the weight of that action for the rest of my existence. So choose, Fleet Admiral. Choose who you want to be in this moment." The bridge was silent. Every eye was on Zerenthox, waiting for his decision. He thought about the hegemony. He thought about his duty, his honor, his pride. He thought about everything he had believed and everything he had done. And then he thought about the look in Admiral Vance's eyes, the look of someone who had touched something beyond mortal comprehension and had somehow remained true to herself. "Communications," he said quietly. "Send to all surviving vessels. We are withdrawing from this system. Set course for the hegemony border. Maximum speed." A collective exhale seemed to ripple through the bridge. "Admiral," his tactical officer said, "the High Command will not be pleased. They will want to know why we retreated. They will demand." "Let them demand," Zerenthox said. "Let them send another fleet if they dare. And let that fleet learn what we learned today." He looked at the image of Admiral Vance, still displayed on the main screen. "I have lived for 400 years, human. I have seen countless species rise and fall. But I have never seen anything like you. Your ancestors created something that should not exist, and you found a way to use it without losing yourself. That is remarkable." "Thank you," Vance said simply. "Do not thank me. I am not complimenting you. I am warning you. The hegemony has existed for 3,000 years. We have conquered galaxies, absorbed civilizations, extinguished stars. We will not accept this defeat. We will return, and when we do, we will bring everything we have. Then we'll be ready." Zerenthox held her gaze for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Perhaps you will. Perhaps, for the first time in 3,000 years, we have finally met an enemy worthy of us." He straightened in his command chair. "Farewell, Admiral Vance. I suspect we will meet again." The communication ended, and on the bridge of the eternal subjugation, the surviving Zethrani fleet began its long journey home. In the hours after the battle, the Prometheus descended through Earth's atmosphere for the first time in 200 years. The ship's creators had never intended for it to enter planetary gravity wells. The massive vessel should have been impossible to land, too large and too heavy for any atmospheric approach. But with Vance merged into its systems, the ship was no longer bound by conventional physics.
What's that? She closed her eyes and reached out with her consciousness, touching the vast intelligence that was now part of her.
Prometheus, can you show them?
Show them what, Admiral?
Show them what we are, what we've become, what we can be. There was a moment of silence, and then, across the entire surface of the Prometheus, lights began to form. Patterns and images and scenes from Earth's history. The first humans looking up at the stars. The first ships leaving the solar system. The colonies, the explorations, the endless reaching toward the unknown. And finally, an image of the battle itself. Not as a victory celebration, but as a reminder. A reminder of how close humanity had come to extinction, and of the price that had been paid to prevent it. The crowds watched in awed silence as the story unfolded across the ship's massive hull. And when it ended, when the final image faded and the Prometheus returned to its impossible blackness, a sound rose up from the gathered millions. It started as a whisper, then grew to a murmur, then built into a roar that seemed to shake the very air. Applause, cheering, the sound of a species that had looked into the abyss and, against all odds, had survived. Vance stood at the center of it all, her crew gathering around her, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel hope. The war wasn't over. Xeranthox had been right. The hegemony would return. They would bring everything they had, and the battles to come would make today's engagement look like a skirmish. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, humanity had survived. Today, they had proven that they were more than vermin to be exterminated. Today, they had taken their first step toward becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. And at the heart of it all, guiding them forward, was the impossible ship that shouldn't exist, and the woman who had chosen to become one with it, sacrificing her humanity to save her species. The Prometheus had awakened, and the universe would never be the same. Epilogue: A New Dawn. 6 months later. The reconstruction of Earth was proceeding at a pace that would have been impossible before the battle. Technology recovered from the Prometheus, carefully adapted and simplified for mass production, had revolutionized human engineering. New shields protected the planet, far stronger than anything they had possessed before. New ships were being built in orbital shipyards, incorporating principles that humanity was still struggling to fully understand. And in the depths of space, the Prometheus kept watch. Admiral Vance, though she rarely used the title anymore, spent most of her time merged with the ship now. It was easier that way, more natural. Her human body still existed, still walked and talked and ate and slept, but it was increasingly a vessel for her consciousness rather than her true home. Admiral, Prometheus spoke in their shared mind space. I am detecting a transmission from beyond the hegemony border. Unknown origin, unknown language. Vance focused her attention on the signal, parsing its contents with the ship's vast analytical capabilities. What she found made her smile. It's not from the hegemony, she said. It's from beyond them, from one of the species they conquered centuries ago. They've been watching, Prometheus. They saw what we did. And what do they want? They want to talk. They want to know if we'd be interested in an alliance. Apparently, we're not the only ones who've been dreaming of freedom. The ship's intelligence processed this information. This could change everything.
If the hegemony's conquered species rise up, if they see humanity as a symbol of resistance, then we're not alone anymore. We're not just one species fighting for survival. We're the beginning of something bigger. Vance felt the possibilities unfolding before her, not just futures she could see, but futures she could help create. Set a course for the source of that transmission, Prometheus. I think it's time we met our new friends. Understood, Admiral. But I should warn you, there will be consequences. The hegemony will not allow an alliance to form against them. They will strike again, harder than before. I know, and when they do, we'll be ready. She paused, feeling the vast power that surrounded her, that was part of her now. But for now, let's focus on building something. Not just weapons, not just defenses, but hope. Real, lasting hope for everyone who's ever looked up at the stars and wondered if there was something more. The Prometheus began to move, its impossible engines bending space and probability to carry it toward the distant signal. And as it went, Admiral Kira Vance looked back at Earth one last time, at the blue marble floating in the void, the cradle of her species, the world she had given everything to protect. "I'll be back," she promised silently. "But first, I have a galaxy to change." The Prometheus vanished into the darkness between stars. And somewhere, in the vast and ancient intelligence that shared her consciousness, Vance felt something that might have been a smile. "Admiral?" "Yes, Prometheus?" "Thank you for waking me, for giving me purpose, for showing me what humanity is truly capable of. Thank you for waiting 200 years for someone to find you. That took a lot of patience." "It did, but it was worth it." Together, human and machine, mortal and immortal, protector and weapon, they sailed into the unknown, carrying with them the hopes of a species that refused to be extinguished. The hegemony had called humanity vermin. They had made a terrible mistake. Because now, the vermin had teeth. And they were just getting started. In the centuries that followed, historians would debate the exact nature of what Admiral Kira Vance had become. Some called her a goddess, others a monster. Some saw her as humanity's greatest hero. Others feared she represented the loss of everything that made humanity unique. But on one point, all the histories agreed. When the darkest hour came, when extinction seemed inevitable, humanity had reached into its forgotten past and found something extraordinary, a weapon that shouldn't exist, a ship that defied the laws of reality, and a woman who chose to become one with both, sacrificing her ordinary existence for the chance to save everyone she loved. The Prometheus became a legend, a story told to children, a symbol of hope for the oppressed, a warning to tyrants throughout the galaxy. And somewhere out there, among the stars that humanity had once only dreamed of reaching, Admiral Vance kept watch. Waiting. Ready. Forever.